Hello and welcome to the big story here on the BDTV Breakfast Show. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Today we're focusing on the telecom sector and exploring the impact of increasing data demand on the country's economy and its subscribers. Mobile data demand in Nigeria surged over the year, signifying a positive trajectory for the economy and potentially boosting GDP growth by enabling digital transformation across various sectors, creating new jobs in the ICT industry, facilitating innovation, improving access to financial services, and increasing government tax revenue through a growing digital economy. However, it also highlights the need for robust infrastructure development to meet this rising demand. To help us understand this even better, we're being joined by our in-house analyst today, Temitayo Jayola. He's the head of technology desk at BusinessDay. You're welcome to the show, Tayo.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you. Let me start by asking you a simple question. So there's been a surge in data usage by Nigerians over time.
Yeah.
Is this an indication of a thriving economy, or is this something else totally?
So, yes, a thriving economy, yes, and something else also, yes. So, what we are seeing is we're seeing more people get access to smartphones, which it's an indicator of wealth in the economy because more people now can afford smartphones than people could about 2-3 years, even 5 years ago. So now we're having all of that happening. And also what we're also having is the fact that you now have better platforms than they were like 10 years ago. So yes, it's an indicator of economic growth because this data usage eventually boils down into the economy. I mean, through people are buying data, which becomes revenue for telecom operators, which also becomes a sort of revenue for the GDP because you get taxes from this amount. So yeah, it's an indicator of economic growth, but also something else entirely. I mean, technology is at a better place than it was 10 years ago, a decade ago. Yeah.
And when you say something else, what exactly is this something else? I know that right now we have an increasing number of streaming platforms.
Yeah.
I think that's also probably one of the reasons
we also have a
are
very young
using
population.
A younger population. I mean, Africa's youth population is obviously the largest.
Yeah, so we also have a young population. And if you also consider the fact that Nigerians like to talk now, so one thing telecom operators will tell you is that Nigerians just like to talk. So if in other climes, for instance, you could be in the same building with someone and nobody has to communicate by phone. I mean, probably just send a text message or probably just send a WhatsApp message. But Nigerians, I mean, the same building, a Nigerian will call you. I mean, it's raining. You can see the rain, but a Nigerian will still call you and say, hey, can you see the rain? So Nigerians like to talk. We are a communicating population. So that boils down into increased usage. That also boils down into, I mean, trickles down into increased revenue. But the truth is we like to communicate. So I think that that's really the other things because just about 20 years ago, I mean, this is even into how telecoms actually started. Just about 20 years ago, nobody expected telecommunications to blow up the way it has done. But one thing telecom operators will tell you is the fact that they were shocked at how much Nigerians love to talk. So Nigerians are chatty people, and that has, I mean, according to GSMA, about 85% of Nigerians that use the internet, they use it for video calls. For video calls, so that is high data volume. I mean, it's not even voice calls, but they're using it for video calls, so that's high data volume. And then also, as you said, yes, there's been a boom in streaming platforms. I mean, you have the likes of Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, you even have YouTube, which now is becoming the home for YouTube, for Nollywood. Because if you notice, a lot of movie makers are now going into YouTube. And one thing that telecom operators are also doing is that they're actually creating special bundles for YouTube because you're seeing that streaming grow. So, and the best way to do that is, why not just create a special bundle for people to use that? So more people are actually using YouTube. I mean, as well as 200 naira, you can get a YouTube bundle. So that's increased streaming and boils down to the population, boils down to the habit, which is communication. We like gist. We like gist. We also like gossip. So it helps.
Right, and despite the surge in data usage, which also means more money for the telcos, investment in infrastructure has been poor. So what does this say about the telcos themselves?
So I'll be careful with saying that investment in infrastructure is poor because nobody sets up shop to run at a loss. So nobody does that. So, but in the last 1-2 years, telecom operators have also been feeling what I would call Nigeria. So in the last 1 year alone, the value of the naira has fallen by about what? It's fallen from just about 400 to it's about 1,500 naira now. And inflation has risen to double digits, proper double digits. So these are indicators of an economy that is going through hardship. What has happened is that while everything has been happening, telecom operators have not been able to adjust their prices to the realities of the market. So price of Gary has gone up. I mean, probably used to buy Gary 100 naira, now that Gary is probably 300 or 400 naira for the same quantity of Gary. The price of bread also has gone up. I mean, bread that you probably used to buy for, say, 500 naira 2 years ago is probably 1,500 naira today. But while all of these increases were happening across the economy, telecom operators had to keep prices at the same range because they are a heavily regulated industry. And what that means is you cannot just wake up and just say, I want to increase price. Your regulator, that is the Nigerian Communications Commission, they have to approve this price increase. So over the last 2 years, telecom operators have not been able to get a price hike. So what they just did was they just focused on already existing infrastructure. So I use a road analogy to actually just explain this. Lagos in the 80s, for instance, the number of cars on Lagos roads were fewer, but there was also traffic. But then those roads were, you say, they were probably enough. Now imagine that from 1980 till 2025, Lagos did not build any new roads. Lagos did not do anything in terms of road infrastructure. And now imagine what has happened with the number of cars on the road. So the number of cars has increased, but your road infrastructure has not increased. And that's what has happened with telecom operators. So every year you need to continue investing in your network because you're having more people use it. So it's more like a pipeline. If you don't expand that pipeline, you're going to have congestion, which, I mean, in layman terms, traffic on the road. So if you don't expand it, there's that congestion. But they cannot afford to do that, and they've not been able to afford to do that for the last 2 years. So what that has translated to is the fact that they just kept that road, that tiny road that they had, while more people are still trying to funnel through that same road, but they've not been able to expand that road. So what that has translated to is bad network, terrible service coverage. I mean, sometimes you want to use the data. I mean, you pray to God for it to go through. So I think that I would say, I'm not trying to blame the telcos. I'm also not trying to blame the economy also. I'm just trying to be as realistic as possible. The fact that they just have not been able to afford to invest in the infrastructure. I think that's just the truth, that I cannot afford, if I cannot afford to do it, I don't do it. And that's just happened.
So let's talk about this terrible network and all of these challenges that you've mentioned. You know, at the start of this year, if I remember correctly, we had the telcos say they have to increase their data prices and all of that. Where are we on that now?
Where are we?
Yes, where are we? And what do you make of it? Also, too, in the past few months, especially when you get on social media, when you go to comment sections for telcos, you are seeing people complaining constantly about the poor network. And this says something, because like they say, this one is not a meme. Like, it says something. So isn't this sort of a disservice to subscribers who spend so much to buy data? And if you're spending so much to buy data and you have to go through a struggle, there's nothing as frustrating as a poor network. If I'm speaking to you on the phone now and I can't hear you, I'm doing a video call. You said it rightly that many Nigerians do a video call. You're laughing in the heat of everything and then it disconnects. Isn't this a disservice? And also, where are we now when we're talking about the whole data price increase and all of that? So
try not to do like an history class here, but
no, you can go ahead.
So this is something that telcos have been pushing for like the last 10 years. Since 2013, they started this agitation for increased prices because the economy over the last 10 years has actually been very bad. And now, as of January 20, they got this price, they got the approval in principle, but they could also not immediately implement that increase. So as I said, it's an heavily regulated industry. So what happens is, okay, the NCC has announced that, okay, we've approved prices, but now what you're going to have to do as a telco is you're going to send to the NCC your new prices. So the NCC still also need to give approval to you personally before you can approve those prices. So that took about another 2 weeks. So see, increase NCC announcement, January 20, another 2 weeks before they could even start implementing some sort of approval. Because that's why if you notice, when MTN removed the 15 gig, I don't know, the 15 gig weekly plan, it took about two weeks even after that announcement before that happened. So now that has happened, you now have new prices. So let's say new prices, they kicked in towards late February, mid-February, late February. So automatically network quality is not going to improve because most of this money has not even started coming in. So during MTN's recent investors call, one of the managers said that, oh, they're already seeing people slow demand because of increased prices. So what that means is even the money that you've increased, you're not getting as much yet. And then also, a lot of MTN users, for instance, just talking about MTN, a lot of them are people that actually subscribe 2-3 months basis. So a lot of these people have not even renewed subscriptions. So what that means is you still have money from the whole time that wasn't enough. So technically, it's not as though more money has entered. So, and then you're trying to expand road that has been like this. You want to expand it to this way. So it's going to take time before that happens. So I think what that means is it's not going to be rocket science, even though the NCC has already given a 3 months period. Okay, the NCC has said, we've increased tariff, okay, you must give us better network. And then we're giving you a 3 months deadline. Operators have said, okay, we can achieve that. But in reality, what is going to happen in the next 3 months is probably your calls get better. But will they get smoother? Maybe not. Because it's still going to take a lot of time. I mean, you've not invested in a sector over the last 1-2 years. Right. Automatically, it's not going to be rocket science before everything just happens. So it's going to take time.
So, and not to put you on the spot or anything, do you think that this tariff increase, do you think that it's justifiable by the telcos?
The numbers justify the tariff increase. The numbers justify the tariff increase because let's even just talk basic numbers. MTN, biggest telecom operator in Nigeria with 87 million subscribers, just declared a loss of 400 billion rather. Just MTN alone. Now imagine what that means for the likes of Airtel, what that means for the likes of Globalcom, and what that means for the like of Nine Mobile. If the biggest player is declaring a loss of 400 billion, and this is despite making record revenue of just 3.36 trillion, if I'm not mistaken. So what that means is there's not enough money in the sector, and this is a capital-intensive sector. This is also a very highly dollarized sector. So what that means is a lot of inputs that are coming into this sector, they are imported. So if last year or just 2 years ago I was spending $2,000 on importing something, this year I'm spending that same $2,000, but in Naira terms, it means I'm spending about ×3 of what I was spending last 2 years. So according to Toriola of MTN, all of these costs had increased about 300%. So realistically, they were even pushing for a 100% increase in tariff prices because they're like, you can't just give us a tariff increase as a gift. Now you need to give us prices that are market reflective. If it doesn't reflect the market reality, it means that we cannot really do much because diesel prices have increased. And as we all know, base stations, they run on diesel. Imagine your base station is running on NEPA. I mean, imagine what will happen. It means that maybe every 1 hour, base station is down and everything is down. But they have to run on diesel so that there's uninterrupted power supply. So that is heavy expense. I mean, one telco says every month they need to spend about 300 billion naira. Just every single month they have to burn through about 300 billion, and they were not getting it as of last year. So if you check the likes of MTN, even Airtel, you see that they were borrowing a lot. They were borrowing a lot just to keep the lights running. So I mean, reality is if you run a business and you're not making as much, what that means is you're going to have to look for a way to make more money. And if you don't get that way to make more money, you just first fight for your survival first before you even fight for growth. So I think 2024 for telcos was a year of survival. It was not even a year of growth. It was not a year of doing anything. It was just a year of, okay, let us try to survive and see what happens next. Everybody slowed down on capital expenditure. Everybody just slowed down on everything that they were doing. They just calmed down. I feel like last year was a year of calming down, if we can say that. So yes, the numbers justify these increases. I mean, the losses, the fact that input prices had increased, diesel, everything had gone up. Now, economically, did it make sense? I mean, I will also speak as a Nigerian because I think that that's what the concern is, the fact that the prices of everything in the economy is just going up.
It's going up, and then it's not like the earnings are particularly increasing. So
yes.
If you have to spend more when it's not like the earnings are increasing, then there's a problem.
But then we also need to be careful because we also don't want to, how do I say the word? We also don't want to, we also don't want a sector that is private driven to be subsidizing consumption. Because unlike the government, for instance, where for like the longest time they could afford to pay fuel subsidies, they could afford to shield people from the reality of the oil sector, of the global oil sector. They could afford to do it for like a period of time. I mean, now they can't afford to do it. It has gone off. But we cannot expect people like MTN or Airtel. I mean, they still have shareholders. They still have to invest in network. I mean, it's not a business that you set up shop once and okay, you're good for life. You know, it's a business that every other year you have to invest. I mean, in 2 years, between 2022 and 2023 alone, MTN spent about over £1 trillion naira, just 2 years on capital expenditure. I mean, now imagine every year you have to spend that amount of money. And you are not making that same amount of money. It means, I don't know, but it means that if the tariff increase had not happened, what would have happened is once in a while you want to make a call and a lot of times it's not going to go through.
Really?
If the tariff increase had not happened, that's what would have eventually happened because telcos already getting to the point where they couldn't even afford to buy diesel.
Because what you say about a lot of calls you're trying to make not going through, it's actually happening at the moment.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That
it's
going to
happening.
I'm saying it's going to take time. So it's more like for the longest time you didn't get something. Now you've just gotten it. It's not the day that you get it that things will automatically change. I mean, it's not the day that you start earning it's not the day that you start earning 500,000 that you can buy a car. You probably need another 6 months before you can afford to buy a car. Yes, you're earning 500,000 naira today. You feel like you're rich, but you cannot take that 500 naira to the market to go and buy a car. You need to save. You need to expand capacity. Right. So now what is going to happen in the next couple of months is telcos are trying to expand capacity. For instance, MTN alone, once there were indications that tariff was going to go up, and then once they started balancing a couple of their books, alone in 3 months, MTN invested over 200 billion in their network capacity. And all through the year, from January to December, so from January to September, they had only invested less than 300 billion. So that's to tell you that now telcos are seeing the fact that, oh, okay, we are going to start seeing a little bit of market reflected prices. So now they are investing back. I mean, we're probably going to see network improvement this month, next month. I mean, I don't speak for the telcos, but because what we also do as journalists, we also try to hold them accountable.
Right, exactly. And speaking of all of this, where we're going from here, you know, they've obviously been given a 3-month deadline to improve their services, which you've correctly stated. But do you actually see the telcos meeting this deadline, or are there factors that you think can work against them meeting this deadline?
So factors, I would say that the major thing, what they needed the most was the fact that they needed more money to come in. So you need more cash to come in. Now the regulator has given you access to that. Now there's more funds coming in from increased prices and people buying. So yes, you're going to get that money. So for now, there is not going to be any excuse that is tenable again. I mean, in another 3 months, I think the stories that we're going to start seeing from journalists, for instance, are stories that are questioning network quality. Because if network quality doesn't improve in 3 months, then it beholds on the same journalists that probably justified and probably try to explain why there had to be a tariff increase, it beholds on them to also tell the stories of, oh, okay, you have more money, but we are not seeing that quality, because people have to also see, okay, why am I paying 13 naira per minute for a call that I used to pay 7 naira for per minute if my network quality is not even better? I mean, it's just like you move me to Bande, and rather than give me 20 hours light, you're still giving me 10 hours light, and yet you want me to pay 200 naira, over 200 naira per unit. I'm going to shout. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to talk. I'm going to shout. I'm going to carry placards. I'm going to come to your office and I'm going to shout. It's the same thing that's probably going to start happening in the next 3 months, because we're going to start seeing stories where we need to hold telcos accountable also, because something that the NCC has said consistently in the last 2-3 months is the fact that service quality in the country has to get better. And the NCC even isn't necessarily even so interested in service quality. They are interested in the experience. How do customers, how do they experience your network? Do they leave your network and they feel like, what did I just suffer? Or do they leave your network and they're like, oh, that was seamless? Like, people deserve to actually make calls that go through. People deserve to be on the internet without it lagging. I mean, just 2 days ago, I tried to access just WhatsApp. It wasn't going through. I was trying to send a WhatsApp message for 30 minutes. It was just there. It didn't go through. And I mean, that should not be so hard. If in 3 months that happens, then we can start questioning the telcos. Okay, you've gotten more money, or you've gotten access to more money. Now, realistically, what telcos are saying is, okay, in the next 2-3 months, maybe we're probably not going to get more money, because people first need to adjust consumption. Because I mean, you've increased prices. The first thing that happens is everybody checks their demand. Okay, so maybe I used to spend 11,000 naira per month before on data. Maybe 11,000 naira used to give me 60 gig. Now today, maybe 60 gig is about 20,000. I probably won't want to spend 20,000 naira on the same 60 gig. So maybe I'll still spend that same 11,000, but maybe I'll just be getting about 35 gig. So what that means is that my consumption has reduced. I mean, I'm not using as much, but over time, because I mean, it's streaming, for instance. I want to talk to friends. Over time, my demand is going to adjust back to what it used to be. Probably even get better, because it's just that mental thing of, I mean, first there's first you deny. There's that denial phase. You're like,
is it accept next?
Then next you accept, and with time you adjust. And I mean, in the next 1 year, I don't think we're even going to be having this conversation about whether there was ever a tariff hike, because everybody's consumption will probably have gone back to where it used to be, or even higher. I mean, just about yesterday, I was talking to someone. They still told me that they bought 120 gig of data, and I looked at them like, okay, that's nice. Because I mean, it's been a while I've heard people say it since this happened that they've gotten that volume of data. So yes, so for maybe for the first 2 months, you're going to get contraction in demand. People are not going to, I mean, use as much of your services as they should. But in another 1 year, in another 6 months, you're going to be getting that balanced demand back. So that means you're going to actually be getting more increased revenue. So what that means for telcos is the fact that they can bet on this. So even if you're not getting money now, as much money now, you can look for that money, because you're sure that money is going to come in. So you can look for that money, use it to expand your network, and once quality of experience gets better, what that means is you're getting all your money back, all your investments are coming back. So yes, so to the question, I mean, we're just going to need to hold them accountable, because there's a KPI, let me just use the word, there's a KPI that we're going to use to measure this increased tariff.
And what's this KPI? Increased, just let's take
the KPI is simple. Let people make a call without congestion. Let people be able to experience the internet smoothly, seamlessly. Let people be able to use communication services seamlessly. I mean, it shouldn't buffer. I mean, for
streaming services,
it shouldn't. So yes, so quality of network needs to improve. So that's the basic KPI. That's even what the NCC even tied this tariff hike to. They tied it directly to, okay, we're giving you this tariff hike, but now we need to see improved network quality.
Right. Thank you very much, Temitayo. This has been such an insightful conversation. It was lovely having you on The Big Story this morning. But that's how we bring it to a wrap here on The Big Story. My name is Elizabeth Musa. Keep watching BDTV.